All right, let's see how you did. So, first question is, which unit of measurement is larger, a pound or a kilogram? Well, here we can see 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So 1 kilogram is heavier than 1 pound. 1 pound would be about this much, right? 1 kilogram is heavier, so 1 kilogram is more than 1 pound. Use your figure as a reference and draw 3 kilograms. So I took my kilogram rectangle and I wrote it out a couple more times, copy paste. 1 kilogram, 2 kilograms, 3 kilograms. About how many pounds are in 3 kilograms? Well, I'm just going to take 2.2. I'm going to add 2.2 more, add 2.2 more, and I get 6.6. Now, another way to do that would be I could take my conversion factor and multiply both sides by 3, and I get the same result, 6.6 pounds. About how many kilograms are in 1 pound? Well, from my diagram, I took my kilogram, my 2.2 pounds. 1 pound is about halfway, close to halfway, between these two lines of this rectangle here. So I'm going to guess that it's about a half a pound. About, not exactly, right? Because this isn't exactly, or excuse me, half a kilogram, sorry. This isn't exactly, 1 pound is not exactly half of 2.2 pounds, so pretty close though. We're just estimating, we're just trying to get an idea about how many kilograms are in 0.5 pounds. Well, let's look at 0.5 pounds. 0.5 pounds is a half a pound, that's going to be about right there, so maybe 0.25 kilograms, somewhere around in there. There's no exact right answer here. We're just estimating, trying to get a feel for how these units relate to each other. We're pretty good at relating and understanding feet and inches and estimating those things and how they relate to each other, but we need more practice with things like pounds and kilograms about how they relate to each other and how to estimate with them. Estimating is not going to be the best all the time, right? Sometimes we need more exact quantities, although estimation works in a lot of places. But if we want a more exact answer, we're going to use something called unit conversion factors. Since unit conversions are rates, and rates can be represented as fractions, we can represent unit conversions as fractions. For example, the unit conversion 1 mile equals 5,280 feet can be represented in two different fractions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the values and put it in the numerator and the other one and put it in the denominator. Or we could switch it. Now, why would we do that? Well, I want you to notice that these fractions are actually equivalent to 1. Can you think about why that would be? Why are those fractions equal to 1? Because they're the same value, right? You're dividing something by itself. You're dividing something by the same value. If I take 3 and divide it by 3, it's 1, even if it doesn't look exactly like 3, right? Let's say I have something like 4 minus 1 divided by, I don't know, 1 plus 2. That's equal to 1 because they are both 3. They're both equivalent values. What if I took the distance 12 inches and divided it by 1 foot? Well, 12 inches is the same as a foot, so what I'm really doing is a foot divided by a foot, which is 1. A foot goes into a foot 1 time. All right, so we're going to use these conversion factors and we're going to multiply with them. Now, what's the great thing about multiplying by 1? When we multiply something by 1, it doesn't change its value. So we're going to use this fact to help us do conversions. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say we want to convert 5 centimeters into inches. So this is the question, right? 5 centimeters is how many inches? So the first thing we want to do is we want to write the quantity that we're converting as a fraction. So 5 centimeters is 5 centimeters over 1. When you do this, you're always just going to write over 1 because anything divided by 1 is itself. The next thing you need to do is go to the chart and find the appropriate conversion factor. Now, if it's not on the chart, you Google it, right? Just look it up. How many inches are in a centimeter, or vice versa, how many centimeters in an inch? So this one, we're converting centimeters to inches. I think this one is on our table. Here it is here. Now, some of you might ask, what if I don't know it, or am I going to have to memorize all these? You should ask your instructor, but I will tell you that most instructors I would give you any conversion between imperial and metric units. there is some expectation that you will know some conversions in imperial units like feet to inches and yards to feet. And also maybe some expectation about the metric system. Do you know how many centimeters are in a meter? But you should ask your instructor for clarity. Certainly things like seconds and minutes in hours, days in the week, those are things that are not going to be in a table for you. All right, let's get back to our problem over here. So we've got our conversion factor. Now, as we talked about above, we know we can write that conversion factor in two different ways as a fraction that's equivalent to 1. So we're going to pick one of these. How do we know which one that we want to pick to multiply by? Here's how you tell. You take the number that you're converting, the 5 centimeters over 1, right here, and notice that the centimeters is in the numerator. So in order to make those centimeters cancel out, or go away, reduce, we need to pick the conversion factor that has the centimeters in the denominator. So we want to pick this one because it has the centimeters in the denominator, and then we can reduce these centimeters. We're just left with inches. So if I multiply straight across, remember that's how you multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 2.54 is 2.54. Now all I have to do is 5 divided by 2.54 to figure out how many inches. All right, so we have our answer. 5 centimeters is approximately 1.969 inches. All right, let's practice another one. The distance from Spokane to Helena, Montana is 310 miles. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this to kilometers here on the next problem. 310 miles is how many kilometers? But before we do this, let's practice again our common sense. Is this distance greater or less than 310 kilometers? Which is more distance? If you didn't like driving, would you rather go 310 miles or 310 kilometers? Let's go back and look at our kilometers and miles. It's a little messy over here. Maybe I can erase some of this stuff that I drew so we can look at it. You remember which one is bigger, a mile or a kilometer? 1 mile is bigger than 1 kilometer. So certainly 310 miles is going to be more than 310 kilometers. 310 miles would be 310 of this distance. 310 kilometers would be 310 of that distance. Okay? So just keeping in mind now that we're going to expect that 310 miles, if we want an equivalent, what we're doing on our problem that we're working on is we're trying to find an equivalent number of kilometers. So this number is going to have to be bigger than 310. This number is going to have to be bigger than 310 because 310 kilometers is not enough to get us 310 miles. We need more kilometers. So just always think common sense wise. That's going to help you determine whether your answer makes sense. Okay, so I did all that explaining. You write that down however it makes sense to you. You can pause the video and do that. Okay, so use the fact that 1 mile is approximately 1.61 kilometers to convert this distance to kilometers. All right, so what was it again? 310 miles. So remember, the first step is we're going to take the 310 miles and we're going to put that over 1. Now we're going to multiply by what our conversion factor written as a fraction. We have two ways we can write it as a fraction. We have to figure out what we want to put in the numerator and what we want to put in the denominator. You got it? So notice the miles are in the numerator, so we want to put miles in the denominator. So we're going to put 1 mile in the denominator and 1.61 kilometers in the numerator. The miles will cancel out and reduce, and so now we'll take our calculator and we'll punch in 310 times 1.61, and we're going to get 499.1. And then notice all we're left with is kilometers, so we get the correct unit of measurement as well as the correct number. Now the bottom, the denominator would come out to be 1, right? But anything divided by 1 is just that number, so we don't have to write that. All right, part C says use the fact that 1 kilometer is about 0.62 miles to convert this distance to miles. So this is a different conversion factor, but it does the same thing. So we're going to take, actually I think this is a typo here. We want to convert to kilometers still. So we're still going to do our 310 miles. We're still going to convert it to kilometers, but we're going to use this different conversion factor here. The fact that 1 kilometer equals about 0.62 miles, which was what we guessed before. That's interesting. Remember above when we were looking at our diagram? Okay, so now we want to do our conversion factor. We want to do the same thing again. We've got miles here. So we want miles in the denominator. So using this conversion factor, we have 0.62 miles in the bottom and 1 kilometer in the top. So the miles again are going to cancel. Let's put this over 1. So if we multiply straight across, we get 310 kilometers divided by 0.62. So now punch into your calculator 310 divided by 0.62, and we get about 500. Actually, it came out to be exactly 500, but these are estimates because our conversion factor is an estimate. So we got a slightly different answer in part B and part C using these two conversion factors. Both of these conversion factors will work for miles to kilometers. The difference is one of them has 1 mile is how many kilometers, and the other one is 1 kilometer is how many miles. And why are these slightly different? Well, they're different because the conversions are approximate. If you were using an exact conversion, like the fact that 3 feet equals 1 yard, or you could say 1 foot is 1/3 of a yard, you're going to get the same answer because that is an exact conversion. But when we're going from metric to our system, then we have these approximations. So they're going to be pretty darn close. Let's look at number 2. A recipe calls for 6 tablespoons of salt, but we only have 1/8 of a cup measurement, 1/4 of a cup, and 1/2 a cup spoons, or those little cups. And so you want to convert to cups. 6 tablespoons of salt is how many cups? That's what we're trying to figure out. 6 tablespoons. I've done this before too. It's like, wow, that's a lot of tablespoons. Could I just use one of my little cup measurements? 6 tablespoons is how many cups? So let's use our intuition first. Is this cups number going to be bigger or less than 6? Is 6 tablespoons of salt more or less than 6 cups? Hopefully you have an idea of this one, right? 6 tablespoons. 6 tablespoons is way less than 6 cups of salt or anything. All right, let's do the conversion. So we're going to need to get a conversion factor. Let's go see if there's anything in our table that could help for cups to tablespoons. Do you see anything there that we could use? I do. You see, there it is right there. 1 cup is 16 tablespoons. Okay, let's use that. Let's go back over here and write this down. 1 cup is 16 tablespoons. So we want to convert 6 tablespoons. So we're going to put 6 tablespoons over 1. Now, how are we going to use this conversion factor in our chart? We're going to put it in here. So what order do we want to put it in our multiplier? I don't want to use the word multiplier. That's kind of a word we use when we're doing percents. But that's okay. This thing we're going to multiply by, this fraction, converting fraction. We've got tablespoons in the numerator, so we need the tablespoons in the denominator down here. So we're going to put the cups here and the 16 tablespoons down here. Okay, So what happens? The tablespoons get canceled out. Let's multiply straight across. We've got 6 cups in the top, and then we've got just 16 in the bottom. Let's not put this in a decimal because the question is asking us about using these cups up here, an eighth of a cup, a quarter of a cup, or a half a cup. So let's reduce this fraction down. 6/16 is going to reduce down to 3/8 of a cup. So how could we use our cup measuring tools to come up with 3/8 of a cup of salt, which will be equivalent to 16 tablespoons? Well, we could use an eighth 3 times. We could do that, or 2/8 make a quarter, right? So we could use our quarter measuring device and then our eighth. Okay, and that would do it. And then we could get our 16 tablespoons of salt, which is going to be way easier. Not 16, 6. 6. Oh, that's our conversion factor. Sorry, 16 is our conversion factor. Measuring out our 6 tablespoons of salt. We could do it either of these ways. Okay, let's finish up with number 3. There are about 7.48 gallons, about in 1 cubic foot. So you can write cubic foot like this, cubic foot, or you can write it like feet to the 3rd power, cubic, and that's red, cubic foot. Okay, 1 cubic foot. So we're going to talk a lot more about volume in the next section, but a cubic foot is literally a cube, like a big giant dice, that's 1 foot in length, 1 foot in width, and 1 foot in height. So if you kind of hold your hands out to be a foot, and a foot high and a foot wide, that's a pretty, big amount of water. That's about 8 gallons. Like you could pour, or excuse me, 7.5. You could pour about 7.5 gallons of milk in there. That's a cubic foot. Is the volume of the fish tank more or less than 35 cubic feet? Find the volume of the fish tank in cubic feet. So I want you to pause the video, do this problem, and start it when you're ready. All right, well, let's figure out the volume. I didn't read this part up here, but I'm sure you did. A fish tank has a volume of 35 gallons. So 35 gallons. The first question is this more or less than 35 cubic feet? Well, it takes 7.48 gallons to make 1 cubic foot. So this is going to be less than 35 cubic feet. It's going to be less than 35 cubic feet. 35 cubic feet would be 35 of these 7.5s. 35 times that, right? That's a lot. All right, find the volume of the fish tank in cubic feet. So we want to convert 35 gallons to cubic feet. So we're going to put our 35 gallons over 1. We're going to use our conversion factor. Let's see, I've got gallons in the numerator, so I want to put gallons in the denominator. Therefore, we'll have 7.48 gallons and then 1 cubic foot. Gallons are going to cancel out, so we are left with 35 cubic feet over 7.48, no more gallons. So we're going to punch into our calculator 35 divided by 7.48, and let's do approximately, because these are approximate. We're going to get approximately let's round to 4.7 cubic feet of water in that fish tank. I really want you to use these conversion factors, all right? There's other ways to do these problems, but we're practicing using these conversion factors because we are going to be doing some more difficult problems where we convert, say, kilometers per second into miles per hour and cubic feet into cubic meters. And these conversion factors are going to make those more difficult problems a lot easier. So please practice this technique.